I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
President Daley.
Here.
Vice President Henderson.
Here.
Trustee Clements. Here. Trustee Parr. Here. And Trustee Schwartz.
Here.
Great, thanks for coming, everybody. I'd like to turn my comments from the school board president over to Trustee Schwartz. He had a really fun-filled day today. I thought that he might want to share with everybody.
Yeah, we had some visitors come to our school in the Bronx today from Haldane. We had 20 students come, I think it was like 15 seniors and 5 juniors. And it was really a very nice day. They got there around 9:45, and our students came out and they greeted them, and they took them right into the classes. They spent about an hour walking around the building. We're a CTE school, so we have auto shops and graphic arts shops, so they got to see that, and they were really excited about that. Then they just walked around the building. We planned this whole thing out, and then it ends up, you make this plan, and then it just ends up, you know, I was sitting in the library for literally 15 minutes by myself saying, where is everybody? And I found them in the gym, the 3rd floor gym, playing basketball. So they just walked around the school, and then we ordered lunch. We had a nice New York Italian meal for them, and they really liked it. And it was nice. It was they got along very well, the kids, and we're going to reciprocate, and we're coming up here on November 5th. So it should be a lot of fun. So it was great, and the kids were great, and they all seemed to have a really good time. So,
Very nice.
yeah.
Okay, so we've got a fun-filled evening tonight, which begins with the audit report. I think we're going to jump right into it with Mr. Tim Doyle is here from our I'll let you introduce yourself. You're going to do a much better job. But from our audit firm, and he'll be presenting our annual audit to all of us. It's also in board docs, so if you guys want to follow along, or I'm sure there's not a PowerPoint. No PowerPoint, just you.
Pull that microphone closer. Well, thank you.
Thanks for being here.
I don't think I've ever heard it called fun-filled, but I'll take it. Can you hear me okay? Yes, my name is Tim Doyle. I'm a partner with the Bonadio Group, and we recently completed your annual audit of both your basic financial statements and also your extra classroom activity funds. As you know, each year SED requires both an audit of those basic statements and a separate audit of the extra classroom activity funds. So again, we've recently completed it. We've met with your audit committee to review the drafts in detail and field any questions that were had. And tonight I'm here to present the results of the audit and also any questions that you may have. Okay. So there were 2 separate documents or audits that you received. There was also an internal control matters letter, which is just areas for improvement. They're not required to be reported, but just areas where we saw there was some improvement that could be done. There was also a required communication letter that in any audit is issued to the governing board, so that's been provided to you as well. The 2 audits that we did, the first one is your extra classroom activities audit. And that audit is of each of your clubs on a cash basis as required by SED. And we issued an opinion on those financial statements. It was a qualified opinion, and we sometimes get the question on that as to why it's qualified in extra classroom activities, because there's a lot of cash receipts that are involved and a lot of separate fundraisers at different locations by different people. The completeness assertion is one that we can't verify. We can't determine that all of the cash made it to your central treasurer. What we can determine is that what was received by your central treasurer was auditable. So the opinion reads that the basis of the qualification is insufficient accounting controls are exercised over cash receipts at the point of collection to the time of submission to the central treasurer. Accordingly, we were unable to obtain sufficient audit evidence over such receipts beyond the amounts recorded. The opinion goes on to state, in our opinion, except for the possible effects of that matter, in the basis for qualified opinion paragraph, the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the cash and fund balances of the extra classroom funds as of June 30th, 2015, and its cash receipts and disbursements. So again, it is qualified for the completeness, but of the items that we were able to audit, there is no qualification. Very standard throughout the state. We do 70 school districts, and we see this all the time. I sometimes get the question of where don't you see it? BOCES. BOCES don't have a lot of cash fundraisers, so they don't have the qualified opinion. So that was your extra classroom activities fund audit. Before I go on to the basic audit, any questions on that?
At the end, do you give us suggestions on how to do that better?
There were suggestions in the internal control matter document on cash receipts and disbursements in the extra classroom. However, and they will help, but the process itself is inherent with risk because there's cash and it's multiple sites and multiple people. So you can only fix it so much, unfortunately. We were not required to report any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in those internal controls. So while we did find, you'll see in the document, we did test a number of transactions. There were one or two where we found that maybe they needed more documentation, but it was not something that was significant throughout the system.
Thank you.
So it seems like the only way to not have a qualified opinion on the extracurricular would be to not have cash fundraisers.
You hit the nail on the head. That's
Okay,
exactly my response when asked.
So you did say inherent, but I just wanted to, that really would be the only way not to do it. That would be the solution.
Yeah, I mean, the three big things that cause it are cash, multiple people, multiple locations. So there's many different potential for that cash not to make it there. And the example I'll give sometimes, I've never heard crickets when I. The one example I give sometimes is, you think of a car wash. You want to support the lacrosse team, the soccer team, the football team, and you have a car wash. And even if you said, I'm going to have somebody count the number of cars that come through, and if it's $5 a car and there's 100 cars, we better have $500 cash. If I pull up and I say, I've got 3 kids in the programs, I'm going to give you $20, you would never know if you didn't get the full $515 then. So it's just inherent that there's not a whole lot you can do with it. The process is that the kids learn how to run these things, and it's not a perfect system, but it hopefully teaches them something. Okay. All right, so if no other questions on that, I'll go to the basic financial statements. So on your basic financial statements, there are 2 reports that are included within that packet that are from our firm. One is our opinion on the basic financial statement. So that's where we determine if we can state an opinion as to whether your statements are fairly stated in all material respects, and that covers both the statements and all the required footnotes as well. And then the second report that's included in that packet is a governmental auditing standards report, and that requires us to report on 2 things. First of all, your internal controls over financial reporting. So these are the controls that, if not in place or not operating effectively, could result in a material misstatement. And the second area that we report on in that report is your compliance with laws, regulations, and grant contracts. And again, we're looking at those things to see if your controls aren't good in those areas, could they result in a material misstatement? So first, on the auditor's opinion, we issued an unmodified opinion, used to be called unqualified, terminology's changed a couple years ago. An unmodified opinion means that we did not have to modify our opinion because you had a material misstatement. So our audit report notes that your financial statements and the footnotes included are materially fairly stated in all respects. It's the highest level of assurance that an auditor can give you on your financial statements. I believe it's consistent with what you've had in the past as well. Okay. The second report we talked about, the government auditing standards report. As I mentioned, we issued an internal control document that are areas for improvement. They're not required to be reported. They're just areas that we've noted that you may want to look at. But the areas that we're required to report is if there are any internal controls relating to your financial reporting that, if not operating effectively, could result in a material misstatement. We did not note any material weaknesses or significant deficiencies in those internal controls. And then also, as part of that report, your compliance with laws, regulations, and grant contracts, we did not note any non-compliance that would be material to your financial statements. Things you might see in there, as an example of the compliance requirements, your 4% threshold for your unassigned fund balance, things like those. We look at payroll process. If you're not properly reporting payroll, those kind of things would fall into there. But again, no non-compliance that would be material to the financial statements noted as that part of the report. Those are the two reports that are included in the packet. You did not require a federal single audit this year because you had less than $500,000 of federal awards that were expended. So there is no single audit or program audit. Next year, that level will go to 750, so most likely, unless there's a new batch of federal funding, you will continue to not need the single audit. We definitely want to thank the district's management and staff. They did a very good job at being prepared for us and made sure that the audit moved along very well. You also implemented a very significant standard that's included in these financial statements this year, GASB 68 and 71, which is a companion standard. These standards put on your balance sheet, your not your fund balance sheets, but your entity-wide balance sheet, a net pension asset and net pension liability and some related accounts. It also added about 13 pages of footnotes and 2 required supplementary schedules. It was a very comprehensive standard. The net effect for you was a restatement of your opening fund balance on your entity-wide of about $1.5 million, as required by the standard, to bring in the opening balances, and then about a little less than a $2 million adjustment up this year in the current year activity related to mostly to your TRS net pension asset. These come directly from the TRS and ERS forms. They provide all the information, but you'll see as you look through the statement, it's pretty comprehensive. And that's all I'm required to go over, but I'm open to any questions you may have.
Well, well, first of all, I just want to, being on the audit committee, was Margaret and I were now the representative. Peggy, I'm sorry. Margaret, I'm sorry. I'm looking at Margaret. So we were on the committee together, and Tom did a great job. Okay, we're very lucky to have Tom as our chairperson. And
Tom Campanile, if you want to just wave to the audience here. Tom is the audit committee chairperson. He really leads the charge for all of us. And on the audit committee, there are 2 board members. There's also, you guys can correct me, but Roman Danilov and Kara Powell, 2 community members that we're really thankful for their assistance and guidance as well. And Tom, I'll let you comment as well if you have anything you'd like to share after Evan's done. Yeah.
so, yeah, and then, of course, Ann and her team for all that they do. But just in reference to the classroom, as far as suggestions, one of the suggestions that we discussed that we've done before, and I think we should do it, it's a small cost, was the training that they would come and train all the club advisors on how to collect cash and just, as far as how long to hold it, where to hold it, that kind of thing, forms that would fill out. I think that would be something good.
Yeah, we have several of our districts that ask for that as well. So
Yeah. We did that a couple of years ago, but a refresher course would probably be a good idea.
Yeah, that's the thing. Your advisors mostly stay the same, but your kids graduate all the time, so
Right.
you're constantly needing to retrain.
Right.
Absolutely.
Tom, do you have anything you'd like to share? You can grab the mic.
Keep it short then. No, I would just echo, great job on the audit. We went with a new firm this year. We did it specifically to recommend a fresh set of eyes. So I think we got some great findings, some things that may not have been raised in the past, and they're more improvement opportunities than anything else. I mean, I would stress the unmodified opinion for the financial statements that matter, The classroom one, I think we'll look at that, but I think you've got to stress on that again, that that's not taxpayer money, that's not the budget, it's the club money at that point. So I think you're absolutely right. The only way to make it totally clean is not to have any clubs and not collect cash. So we'll continue to kind of monitor what you do around that and implementing the recommended improvements. But I think otherwise it was a great experience, and we learned a lot. There were some very good findings in there. And I would just echo kind of the praise for Ann and her team, just given this was first year with a new audit firm, new software. We had the state audit going on at the same time. It was a busy summer.
Yes, it was.
And everyone did a great job. Thanks.
Just before you sit down, Tom, because we've had a new company working with us this year, and I know that they brought a lot of technology to bear on the audit in terms of automated data acquisition, automated analysis. Can you tell us a little bit about how the process went?
It's fully online. I think that, we had to get people trained up on how to work with it, but it's 21st century auditing in that it's all uploaded to a system. You could track the process of the audit. The questions and answers are all online. I was able to log in as the audit committee chair, so I thought it was great. Back when I audited, it was still pen and paper, so it's good to see how it's done in the 21st century.
Good. Great. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.
And we do a new audit firm every 5 years typically, right? So we'll probably be sticking with this firm for the next few years. Looks like it worked out well. And we do that not because the other firm did anything wrong, just as a way to make sure we're always having fresh eyes on our books. Any other questions? It sounds like, just to totally dumb it down, it sounds like A++. It doesn't get any better. It sounds like Ann's doing a great job, the school's doing a great job of keeping everything in order, and sounds great.
They did do a great job. As mentioned, highest level of assurance that we can give. We stay away from the grades because they tend to show up in the newspaper the next day that the auditor said, and anything less than an A is not going to look good. So unmodified, clean opinion, and no material weaknesses and significant deficiencies. But yeah, great job from management and the staff. They were very, very responsive.
Great. Okay.
Just a
Yeah.
couple more questions. I know in the past we've been running a deficit on our lunch fund. It looks as though we're continuing to run what looks like a larger deficit this year. Is that so? That's something that we're going to have to take a look at. I think I gather it's fairly common for districts to be in that situation, but ideally, the lunch fund should be deficit free. So we may need to,
especially with the new regulations, it
Yeah.
becomes more and more difficult to do that.
And then I also noticed you've made a couple of recommendations in the area of information technology. So thanks very much for looking into that area for us. I know that's not sort of part of the core audit package, but we certainly welcome your recommendations and what you've pointed out there. I think those are two potential security vulnerabilities that we need to take a look at rectifying. So perhaps the technology committee could take a look at that and come back with some recommendations and a timeline for how we can address that.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
But otherwise, financial statements, yeah, looks like everything is in good order.
Okay, Tim.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, so we're going to move on to our board workshop topic for the evening, which is the discussion about the later start time possibility for the middle and high school. And I'm going to turn it over to our administrators and superintendent to lead that presentation.
Okay, so we're So thank you for those of you who are here to hear some of the recommendations about the potential for a later start time. Last year, we started this conversation, and we realized that based on the complexities of these potential decisions, it was something we had to really look at. We had to work slowly, we had to work methodically, and bring to the board recommendations for potential options. So what I'm going to quickly do, this is actually the beginning of this is the PowerPoint we used last year. And so at the end, you're going to start to see recommendations of potential options. But why we're doing this, why we even started this discussion, we decided to have this discussion last year after the American Journal of Pediatrics published a report about start times for high school students. And within that report, they talked about a number of different things, but basically what they said is that the most appropriate start time for a high school age student, based on all of the different characteristics of who they are at that age, was 8:30. And they suggested that schools look at the potential of starting later. And our middle school and high school starts just a little after 7:30, so it would be in order to make the full 8:30, it would be a full hour shift. We also looked at the potentials of maybe just a half an hour shift, or doing a swap, a switch, and a synthesis. I think we had 3 different, did I get all the words right?
Synchronized.
Oh, synchronized, okay, so. There are a couple things very quickly. These are some of the things that were brought out in the report from the American Journal of Pediatrics. Basically, the circadian rhythm of a high school age student does not allow kids to wake up as early as we ask them to. And that's kind of the long and short of it. 8.5 to 9.5, the kind of the sweet spot for the amount of sleep a student should get. And we find that that is not the average sleep that our students come in with. Research also shows that if you move from an earlier start time to a later start time, and even if you go from 7:30 to 8 o'clock, it's still going to be a benefit. It may not be as beneficial as 8:30, but there would be changes to pull that later. Some of the other things is that there's many different health risks, and you can keep going through. Some of the health risks that they were actually showing, one more, that were becoming related and correlated with early rise times were the different type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, obesity, depression, and anxiety and mood disorders, none of which is going to be supportive of education. We also have the quality of life, as they feel, is decreased. There's levels of fatigue and many other situations that are related and correlated to this. So we're just kind of quickly reviewing some of the things that we shared last time. So as we consider all of these, and as we see that there are some negative consequences of early start times, and we look at some of the start times around the area, we're not the earliest by far. We have neighbors that are starting at 7, we are starting at 7:30, and we are looking at the potential options. So I'm going to turn it over to Brian at this point, and he will talk about the topics and the potential options.
Thank you, Dr. B. I'll just start. Here we are 1 year later, and we ask the question, well, what's new? What's changed in a year's time? And I guess the answer is that nothing, except that there's more, all the research is the same, and there's even more mounting research around this topic. And the big thing that is new is that in August, around the same time that the American Association of Pediatrics last year came out with their study, this year in August, the Centers for Disease Control, federal agency, came out with very strong language around this, declaring it a public health risk. So, it's a big deal. It's not going away, and it's something that we have taken very seriously over the last year. I mean, I was talking with my class parents today, and you really think about that, Centers for Disease Control, right? You think CDC, Ebola, and school start time. One might argue that's a little inflammatory, but at the same time, that says a lot, doesn't it? So what we talked about last year is a more detailed look at how our current schedules look, I would hope that everybody has at least a baseline understanding of each of these things going forward for this evening so that we don't have to review them. But the complexity of these things are definitely at work in the three recommendations that we're going to put forward tonight. This is a very important one to notice. There are currently 5 lunch sessions, right? And in a couple of different versions, there's some pretty outrageous potential lunch times for elementary and/or high school in our different versions. Again, we highlighted all of these things. There are a lot of different complexities to our academic program, and we're keeping all of these things in mind as we look at our different models. Most affected, interscholastic sports, clubs, all-county music. You're going to hear the word shared space, shared space, shared space over and over again. Lunchtimes I mentioned, consistency, and transportation, of course. Transportation, the big one. This is exactly what we're doing. These are the recommendations of the national agencies, and this is how we're following it. So there are 3, as Dr. Bauer said. I'm just going to give you a quick glance. The shift, the swap, and the synchronize. So with the shift, you're looking at shifting everybody by a half an hour. So we currently start at 7:30 in the middle school and high school, and 8:30 in the elementary school. All of that shifts by a half an hour for 8 a.m. start in middle school, high school, 9 a.m. start in the elementary school, with an end of classes for the middle school, high school at 2:45, still with a 10th period ending at 3:25. Staff day, 8 to 3:25. What does that do? What are the unintended consequences of that, or the natural consequences of a change like that? Of course, extracurricular start times will be impacted. Sports and sports, we typically leave now. We try to leave around 3. Our 10th period goes to 2:55. We try to leave around 3:15. When you add a half hour to that, we're cutting into some tricky times for the start of games. Also, you got to look at extracurriculars like band and chorus, and what happens when you shift the start time of those. There's this issue of early morning elementary school supervision, to be perfectly honest. We have some families that kind of push the envelope with that a little bit in our current start time. And by shifting it a half an hour, we'd have to really start to investigate things like early morning daycare options, which have been on discussion already anyway, and kind of talking with Phillipstown Rec if they can help with that, or if we're doing something like in-house with that. That will become even more into the center of focus if we were going to go with the shift option. With the shift option, there would be no 10th period extra help, band, or chorus for athletes on game days. So that's going to be a challenge. Band and chorus are both credit-bearing courses and opportunities. We do offer band during the day, so that would become more of a priority for students who are athletes to be able to take band during the day, but then they'll be sacrificing some AP courses or something else in order to fit band during the day. Chorus is not currently offered during the day, so that's not an option. And it's not an option going into the future because we don't have the FTE or teacher resources to offer chorus during the day. So it would definitely impact chorus for athletes. With this shift, right now there is elementary teachers in the contract arrive about a half hour earlier before the students. And with this, it's still in compliance with the teacher contract regarding the length of the elementary workday. So it is, in a way, a bonus in that we could theoretically increase student contact time for elementary with that extra half an hour. That is because of the fact, the next bullet point is that the elementary buses for dismissal aren't available till 3:30. That's where that extra half hour comes from of the student contact time. For the high school PM, we have AM and PM tech students. Our AM students leave around 6:45 and then come back approximately 10:30. And then the PM tech students leave at approximately 11:15. So with the shift, our PM tech students would only get about 15 minutes of lunch, and then they'd have to eat the remainder of their lunch on the bus riding over to tech. That's not a terrible drawback in that before we had our new rotating schedule in the high school, that was the exact scenario that we were accustomed to. So that is not a terrible imposition that way. With the shift, there's likely to be a need for an additional FTE for music. I'm going to ask Julia or Brent to explain that. It's pretty tricky, and I don't want to mess it up. So there you go.
Well, I think, it's an understanding that band and chorus are being offered during times of the day where elementary is not in session. Okay, and then in turn, our general music program is happening, for the better part of the elementary school day. So we're really, the way this schedule is structured now with an earlier start time for middle school and high school, it's such that it gives us a longer duration of the day in order to accommodate all of our musical needs. We wouldn't be able to do that with this shift, so in turn we would likely have to increase an FTE for music. We don't believe that it would be a full FTE, but it would likely be somewhere in the neighborhood of a 0.4 to a 0.6.
So on to the next derivation of this is the swap, and that means swapping the current start time of elementary and the current start time of high school, and middle school, to trade them off. But when you look up here, you don't see that as an exact trade, because our thinking was that starting kindergartners at 7:30 in the morning, and I'll touch upon that later on, is a little bit outrageous. So the next closest we could get is an 8 a.m. start for elementary, which is a little bit more reasonable. And then that would put the middle school and the high school at an 8:45 a.m. start, with the end of the day at 3:30, end of 10th period 4:10. So the top of the list, the biggest impact there is extracurricular start times. When you look at the end of classes, you have no opportunity for 10th period there for athletes at all. And when you factor in changing, getting on the bus, travel time, typically 40-45 minutes, we're looking at an average start time for games around 5 p.m. So that's probably the biggest challenge to the swap. Then there's the discussion about how many folks in the area have lights on their fields and all these different things that you start to think about when it comes with that. Fall sports maybe more so than spring sports. So the spring sports are affected the same way with the time, but a lot of baseball fields don't really have lights, and it's not as easy as it might appear to be. So with the swap, because there is a better opportunity really for band and chorus, in that they could come in theoretically at 8 a.m. for band and chorus before school, and then folks would say, well, then how is that a delayed start for the band and chorus students, where in the high school, 53% of our students participate in band or chorus? And the answer is there's still at least a half-hour gain for them, right? So it's 7:30 to 8. That shift for them, it's kind of a shift for the music kids, and they're still getting a little bit of a delayed start. Band and chorus for middle school takes a spot from elementary school. I just reiterate what Brent said. Similar concept. The way that we're able to make it work with the music FTE that we have is because of these staggered starts and where we can spread them through different buildings and maximizing their use in all three buildings. 10th period remains. It's there. We have a nice 10th period from 3:30 to 4:10, but again, except for athletes on game days, don't have the opportunity for extra help. It's the same concept. Band, of course, for elementary school would have to be after elementary dismissal, again, and then it leads to the last point on the board, which is there's likely a need for extra FTE to make this happen. Is it doable? It's doable, but things have to shift and move, and you have to kind of look at what are those shiftings and movements, what do they really do for us or not do. Same concept that Brent summarized so aptly. Elementary band chorus could not be on a set day. As it is right now in the elementary, you know that you have this special on Thursday at this time, and then this special PA on this day of the week at this time. That would make the elementary specials directly dependent upon the high school rotation. So the elementary specials would then have to rotate in order to accommodate or be able to utilize our music teachers. So there are the inherent problems to the lunch schedule in general, but a basic example would be if you looked back to that slide that has all of our lunches, and you shift all of these things, we're looking at a potential lunch slot that would be as late as, after 2 p.m., which is not really good for anybody, regardless of what time you start your day. The other way around that would be to try to condense or combine any of these slots that you see up there. And right now, the space is pretty much at capacity in any of those 5 slots. Could it be done? Yes. Will we have to get creative? Will we have to use spaces other than the cafeteria? Yes. PM Tech students, that's interesting. So before, where they're going to have to eat their lunch on the bus with the shift, with the swap, the PM Tech students are going to have to lose 15 minutes of their morning classes to get to tech. One might argue, hey, it's not really that bad because it's a different class each day because it's a rotation. It wouldn't be the same class every day. But we do have a handful of kids that have to do that now because of an undesirable middle session of tech that we try to never, ever schedule kids for. And you're seeing these folks nod. It's a really, really terrible imposition. It's tough on the teachers. It's tough on the kids to miss 15 minutes. And then not to mention, without, painting with a wide brush, oftentimes, or some students that choose to attend tech are struggling academic students. So we're taking 15 more minutes of instruction away from them every single day. That's pretty tricky. I already mentioned that with the swap and those other bullet points around music, there need to be some FTE. We don't know exactly how much. Okay, so a third option, in a way, we discussed first as a group, as an administrative team. We had discussed this option before any others, and it ultimately just very quickly ruled it out because of cost and insurmountable barriers. But after further discussion this afternoon, we really wanted to put it on the board because I guess the thought is if we were going to do it and do it the best possible way, this is really where we should go. But you'll see very quickly when you look at these bullet points, there are indeed that insurmountable barriers, financial and logistical. So it would be a synchronized schedule. K-12 on the same schedule. 8:30 for middle school and high school, 3:15 with a 10th period till 3:55. Elementary school, contractually with the teachers is slightly different, and their end of the day would have to be negotiated. You can't just plug and play the exact same for high school with elementary. So that would open up the contract, involve some bargaining. The biggest thing that in order to make this happen, as we were talking about with music and PE, it's the staggered start that allows us to get away with our crunch on space. Well, without a staggered start now, we need more gym space, you need more gym FTE, and you need more music space, and you need more music FTE. Could it be done? Yes, but not in here and in there. We would have to have maybe something up the hill, maybe a different room where music is taking place. We would need additional space, additional staffing, because you can't use them in both schools. You can't use them as shared staff as we do now. We would have to be really 3 autonomous buildings to make the synchronized model happen. Transportation, we're looking at up to 4 additional full-size buses to accommodate the 900 students that are going to be arriving simultaneously, which would need 4 additional drivers. I mentioned the renegotiation already with the contract and the elementary teachers. And, we would still have no 10th period extra help band or chorus for athletes on game days. However, with that additional FTE, we would be able to have those offerings during the day, so they wouldn't have to have it after school on game days. But otherwise, 10th period, as you see, would be preserved in the culture. It would be 15 to 3:55. So on the bottom bullet there, something nobody ever would want to see in print at all here. In order to accomplish this, it's not realistic really to do this without saying those dirty words there on the very bottom of the screen. So A couple other things that have come up over the course of this last year, and then talking with different people about these different models. Why? And I mentioned this already. Why not do a true swap? Right? Our swap is kind of a modified swap where we're swapping with elementary, but it's really an 8 a.m. start. Why not do a true swap and start kindergartners at 7:30 a.m.? It's just too early. Kindergarten students waiting for the bus, 6:45 a.m. in the dark in January. Don't know. I'm not comfortable with that. Brent's not comfortable with that. I don't know if any of us are, although I'm going to share a quote with you that's kind of interesting to that point. Second question, why not morning extra help? You could do that and not worry about 10th period and front load it all. And the answer is that at-risk students are very unlikely to attend right now. 10th period, again, is a big part of our culture, and we grab them by the wrist as they're about to go out the door, and we handcuff them to the desk and say, you really need to get this done, and you got your quiz tomorrow, and we want you to pass. And then, in fact, our kids, and we're trying to kind of, contribute to their overall health. If we create an AM 10th period, it's our highest achievers that are going to do that and do that every day. And then, in fact, that defeats the purpose of having a delayed start for them. So these are two common questions that we get asked. We thought we'd just put them out there proactively. And in summary, this is our challenge. Unlike a lot of other districts, their elementaries and middle schools and high schools are fully autonomous entities. We have 3 building schedules using shared space, shared staff, and shared transportation. It's our most significant challenge. But I want to read something to you, which I think kind of helps frame that. It's from the Atlantic Monthly. Why school should start later in the morning. And I don't know if you've seen it. If you haven't, go check it out. There's a website called startschoollater.com, and it's led by, its co-founder and executive director for this nonprofit agency, Miss Snyder. And she kind of pushes back on presentations just like this, really. She says, one of the problems facing advocates of later school start times is that the people sympathetic to their cause seldom have the authority to reset the academic clock, Snyder said. Parents typically only care about the issue when it affects their own family's schedules, she said. That means roughly every 4 years, the key players are replaced, and the grassroots efforts have to start from scratch all over again. And I think that really aptly captures why we've been talking about this for so long, and it's taking a CDC study and American Association of Pediatrics for us to really talk about it more. And she says, you start talking about changing start times, and people immediately jump to all kinds of conclusions. Teens will miss out on sports. Little kids will go to school in the dark and get run over by a car. What will happen to my child care? Snyder said, and this is what I want you to focus on. A lot of these fears and speculations turn out to be red herrings. The real obstacles are failures of imagination. So I want to close with that, but push back on that in our specific context and in an instance, and say that I hope that you'll see that what you saw there is not for a lack of imagination and planning and trying to think out the box and be creative. We've put a lot of effort into trying to make this feasible in some way, shape, or form for Haldane, and we recognize that there's a public health risk. As inflammatory as that may sound, this is a real deal for the overall health and welfare of our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Santana. Okay, wow, that was a lot. I'm not sure where to go from there. Should we just start with some questions?
Kind
I've got like a ton of questions. Do you guys have a ton of questions?
Yeah, well, I have just one question.
Just one.
Well, just one, because
But wait,
sport.
before you ask your
I'm
question,
sorry.
we should thank the administrators, Julia and Brian and Brent and Diana, because this obviously took a lot of time. And Mike, I'm sure you guys were all just working together, figuring it all out. And it takes a lot of time to think it all through, and you guys have been thinking it through for a long time now. And you're thinking it through because it's important to, because of what Brian said. It's for our kids, it's for education, that's why we're all here. So thanks for doing that, you guys. And thanks for laying it out. I feel like the three options really do lay it out for us about the possibilities. Okay, questions, fire them away.
So one question, I'll come back with maybe a couple others, but sports seems to be the big hurdle, okay? So for the midwinter sports, it's because it gets dark early, so I see that. But for, the early fall and the spring sports, if you're playing another team, like if it's a baseball game or a football game or something like that, why couldn't you just say to them, listen, our day ends this. We can't start if they normally start at 4 the games. Well, if Haldane's playing, we need to start at 4:30. If light is not the issue, you take the light. So for that time where light's the issue, obviously they can't. But for like baseball games, say, listen, we can't start till 4:30. Won't those schools make an accommodation for that?
They will, and that's how it's getting done for the most part. But we're not talking about 4:30. We're talking about 5:30, and it's not really the winter sports that are a problem because they're indoors. It is the fall and the spring and the daylight. Right. It's 100% the daylight in the fall and the spring. The other thing that we didn't highlight here, and we were trying not to focus entirely on sports really, because it's an inconvenience. It's an inconvenience in terms of getting people to coach. Right, in terms of all of the later night and all of the different things that come with that, but we weren't trying to focus on that. The other thing that we didn't mention is that we have shared space challenges with our athletic facilities in the same way that we do with PE and the arts. So we, in the winter in particular, our kids practice straight through to 9, 10 o'clock sometimes, 9:30 hopefully at the latest. But sometimes it spills over because we have to run so many sessions during the evening.
Okay.
Fair, sure. Hop in.
I remember when I first became aware of this research, which I think like 10 years ago was when I first started reading about it. And I remember thinking, well, why don't we just swap? And it wasn't until this presentation that I realized how complicated that is in terms of the extracurricular activities, which are a huge part of our students' lives because so many of them participate. I actually just looked at my phone to see, well, what time is the sun setting this time of year? And the sun sets by around 6 o'clock, right? So that is really, it makes it prohibitive.
And then it becomes like 5 o'clock after daylight savings, right?
Yeah. Although at that point, we'll start to switch into winter sports, but still, I had another thought. And the issue of the shared resources, which is how the district has been able to economize as much as it can, is really, really huge. And so, I appreciate all of that. There's just two more things that I want to say because I do think this issue is so important. I really have thought about it for a long time. One is that I think, I guess so too. So, recently there was an article in Education Week, which is a weekly paper for education professionals and the research field. And, there's an article specifically on how even though schools are recognizing this importance, it's difficult. So it's not that it's just difficult for Haldane, and to get at Brian's point, that it's not a lack of imagination or creativity or commitment, that there are really important fiscal constraints, resource constraints that have to be dealt with. And as people are trying to do this across the country, people are really trying, and they are encountering difficulties. I guess the second thing I just wanted to point out is I went and did a little bit more reading on my own, and the biggest, from my reading, what seems to be the biggest health issue that seems to be really pretty solidly evidence-based is the impact on kids' psychological well-being. So it's association, especially with depression and anxiety, and I mean, and that's just it's huge. You know, I think it's really huge. So all of that to say, you know, I really appreciate all the thinking that the administration put into this. I think it lays out options that we need to think about. We need to hear from our friends and our colleagues and community members about what people think about this, because the idea is that we would vote on this later. And yeah, I mean, I just, you know, I really appreciate it. And so I guess what I'm trying to say is it's really an important goal for us that we have set for ourselves. But at the same time, I think we need to understand the constraints and the fact that we may not, you know, get to be exactly where ideally we would want to be in the first jump, and that it's important. I mean, that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the goal is to make a decision about this by December, so that we can go into budget season knowing what we need to do. There are no schools around us directly that have done this, is that correct? In Putnam?
Not in Putnam, no.
In Westchester, there's a couple, right? Dobbs Ferry. Is that the only one?
I believe so. There was one other one you were talking about in Rockland. Yeah.
Okay.
But they don't have the issues like we do with the 3 separate entities, 3 separate buildings.
High school's about 12 to 1,400 kids.
But
They're on their own campus. They're totally separate.
Right,
That's the point.
right. If we were all one, it'd be different.
that said, the difficulties would be reduced if this was a regional approach. If certainly, we've talked about some issues with sports that are not tied to us being out of sync with other school districts, but certainly with BOCES. If BOCES was serving districts who all adjusted their schedules, then they would adjust their schedule too, and that problem would fall out.
But that's just one. That seems like just one problem, and on the smaller side of the problems, the BOCES issue, right?
Right.
Yeah.
So thanks for the presentation, and thanks for obviously presenting them to us in descending order of ease of implementation. But that said, the problems with the first scenario are quite significant. And I'm wondering if you're even at a point where you could make a recommendation to us that this is what you think we should do.
I don't think we're there yet. I think there's a lot of discussion that would have to happen.
Have you guys talked about it yet with Anne? Have you done like a cost out to say, okay, if we do this, that means we need this
Well-
much more of a teacher, and that's going to cost X amount of dollars? Like, have we gotten there yet?
No,
the money?
we have the personnel numbers that we would present, and so it would just be a short jump to that. But we really were looking at the changes that we would need to make.
Right.
And we also haven't had, this is just an introduction to the 3 potentials, and if we are going to move forward for the discussion, and if you'd like us to consider it, then we have to go to the faculty, we have to sit and really have long conversations and look at all the different implications at that point.
Yeah, I mean, I think we're not going to be in a position to make a decision until the administrative team is ready to come to us with a strong recommendation. I mean, I think we're all united in the desire to see this happen.
Right, I think that's the case.
But the logistics are just so troublesome.
And it's very, as you can see how complicated, there's really only one that I think could even be considered, which would just be the shift. And as far as staffing and some of the other requirements would just be insurmountable with the others. So an 8 o'clock start time versus a 7:30 and everything shifts up is the most simplistic, but it still has a number of issues associated with it.
I would just urge that you guys put a lot of time into this. To keep dumping time into this and meetings and forums and this, and then at the end of the day say it doesn't work. I think we should just make that hard decision real quick, and without going through all this work, and then at the end of the day saying it's just still not going to work. Yeah. So we know what the major problems are, and if the decision is it's just not going to work, then let's make that decision and move on and not waste a lot of time. That could be used on a lot of other things.
Yeah, but I think a decision like this is going to take a lot of time because there's a whole many, we got to get all of the people involved and understand what teachers think, parents think. It's
but it's not, but what they, no matter what they think, at the end of the day, if we say logistically it won't work, it doesn't matter what everyone's thoughts are if we're going to come back and say logistically it doesn't work. So let's make that logistic decision now, because if every parent and every person says yes, this is great, let's do it, and we still come back and say logistically it won't work, then why do we go through that effort of getting all this feedback?
Well, what I'm hearing is that logistically it can work. It's just a matter of which sacrifices we want to make in order to make it work. Right. Was that accurate? So,
yes.
Logistically any one of these three scenarios could work. It's just a matter of what are we all willing to give up? Money, convenience, lunch on the bus. What are we willing to give up in order to get the scenario for our kids to be more healthy, right?
So Jan, I'm sure there are people who came this evening specifically for this topic. I know we've got faculty, staff, parents, students. The whole point is to open this up and get people's input, because this is a tough nut to crack. And we have a superb administrative team here, and they've had their creative hats on for a long time. But somebody out there may have suggestions for ways that could simplify this. And so, we at least want to leave this open long enough so that people who are here have a chance to have some input, people who are watching the video at home or reading about it in the newspaper can chime in as well.
So on that note, is there anybody here that has questions that this is kind of just still a brainstorming session at this point, so don't feel like your questions are set in stone. But, does anyone here have questions or thoughts that they want to share? Yeah, Michael. All right. She can change the tape.
Michael Gingilis, Putnam County News and Recorder. Couple questions on the report. Sorry, I got my back to you, Brian. Okay. With this plan, obviously the shift, would be the one that you guys are leaning towards. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but that did seem the most logical. If you did that, what are the odds of high school kids with elementary school kids on a school bus? Because if they're all leaving, if 10th period is 3:25 and 9 o'clock elementary school, their classes end at 3:30, a lot of kids staying for 10th period.
Right. Right now we do, that is pretty much the scenario we have now, right? It's just shifting it later. So high school students that stay for 10th period, we do have a late bus, so it's a separate bus for the high school kids. The middle school kids are allowed to take the elementary buses as long as they are staying with a teacher for extra help. So it would be the same as it is right now. We would need to maintain the late bus for the high school students that take the bus.
But Julia, there's no legal problem with having high schoolers and middle schoolers and elementary school on the same bus.
No, we've never had high schoolers with elementary students on a bus. Not that I know there is or there isn't a legal issue. It's only a very rare occasion. If you live all the way up the mountain on Yellow Bus, you can get a special pass as a high school student to ride the elementary buses. As long as you keep the privilege, then you can do it. That's the only time we have high school on elementary buses.
And on the studies that I read, a lot of them didn't do it because of that reason as well. The parents gave a backlash on it. Question of the early morning elementary school supervision. Did I miss something? Is that going to be contractual, or why is there a question of early morning? Did I miss?
There's likely to be a
I can hear you fine.
With a later start time, I think it's probably going to beg the question in the community. The parents need to get to work, and then in turn, would we be inclined to provide a morning breakfast program or some sort of morning supervision?
So there would be a cost involved with that.
There would be. It would likely, we would have to increase our support staff, our aides, to accommodate that.
So Michael, just also so you know, we are at a later date, we're going to be having a conversation about before and after school care happening here. And that may,
Saw that tied into it,
yeah, that's going to all come together.
And then the next thing is, actually, Mike Twardy, this one's for you, sir. I beat my 2 minutes too, I think, so. 3:30 p.m., the elementary school buses would depart.
Yeah.
And 2:45, the high school buses left? So in 15 minutes, you're turning them around?
No, it's 45 minutes.
Oh, 45, oh, my bad. Good catch, okay.
That's tight. That's a
That's-
fair
That is
point.
tight.
It's
The
The
tight.
mountain bus is
Doable.
tight, yeah.
The mountain
So-
buses this year have been coming in right around 45 minutes. I'm just a little concerned about
Wintertime.
the weather is a little bad.
All right, and my last question, and whoever wants it, mergers with other schools. I know sports is a big thing in this community. Garrison, Beacon, Hen Hud, the hockey teams, the swimmer of one, all that kind of stuff. That would obviously be affected. And then the other things that were brought up in a lot of the articles that I read, did the school look into the schools that don't participate in playing late on the sports? Would they, something the sport has to look into is, would you be willing to pull the kids out of school and miss a couple classes? Because that was another concern that other parents brought up in other studies that I saw. So
Oh, you mean if they wouldn't do, like,
if they won't do a
what
later
you
start
were
time,
asked
you
or-
got to
or
pull them
as
out of
asked?
school. So, and I think Trustee Schwartz brought up a very good point. If the board's not ready to pull the trigger on it, then I think if you make a decision, don't waste the public's time. You know, if you're not willing to go forward with it later on, I think it's a valid point. So, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions, thoughts, comments? Really? As a student, Mr. Gingulis, would you like to?
My name is Steven Gingulis. I'm the senior class rep to the board. I mean, my opinion is I'm sure most high school and middle school kids will agree with me that hearing this at first, everybody's going to jump and say, oh, let's do it because more sleep and I feel like everybody would be excited to do it. But thinking about it more, I feel like it'd be very tough to do because in my opinion, you still, even if you push the time back, you still have time. You have to do homework and with sports, because like you push the time back to 3:30, but you still have sports, and then you still have to go home and do your homework. So you're still going to be staying up later anyway. So I just thought that was kind of a problem. But it also, what about kids that have jobs after school? I feel like it'd be tough for them to continue if like a lot of kids babysit, or some kids have jobs in town. It would be hard for them to get to work on time if they play a sport, or even if the start time was pushed back. So there's just a couple of things I thought of.
Thank you. We talked about that at some point. Has there been research on that? Like if the student knows they can get up later, does that mean they stay up later? So they're still getting this decreased amount of sleep or
No,
not?
Actually, in the American Journal of Pediatrics report, they said that was not the case. So it was part of that study.
So that they'll still go to bed when they go to bed, they just get to get up later. Other questions? Yeah.
I'm Teresa Figueiras, and I'm the junior class rep. And I was wondering, we have extra help, but what would happen to Heart?
Yeah. That wasn't included, but you know what? It's the same as it is now in that it would be immediately following where the extra help period is now. So in what the latest scenario? 410 to 610, right? Or not?
Hi, Nancy Martinez, high school English teacher. I mean, the main reason why you see a few more faculty members than normal is because this is obviously a great concern for us, and we want to know what's going on, and we want to know the content of the conversation. Personally, I feel that the biggest, we are very creative and imaginative with what we do with our schedule already between the 3 schools and the 3 campuses. Not 3 campuses, 1 campus. 3 schools on 1 campus with 1.5 gyms and 1 music room and 1 band room, serving K-12 population. And as a teacher, and just after being here for so long, the logistics just seem nightmarish, even with some of the shift and everything else, without added space somewhere. And I know that sometimes that's hard to understand, that we still feel like we're bursting at the seams here, even with the new addition of a building in 2005. But we do a lot and we have a lot of course offerings, and we do a lot for our students, and we always just want to do more, but we're cramped. And many times when we want to do more, we're faced with, well, where are we going to do this? And then second, when are we going to do it? So the teachers are very just concerned. And obviously, we want to put kids first and their health. But logistically, how do we make this happen in the best possible way?
Hi, can you hear? Oh, hey, thanks. Carolyn McLaughlin. I'm actually wearing 2 hats tonight. I'm a high school special ed teacher, but I'm also a parent in the community. My daughter's in 6th grade here. And my daughter is now up in the morning, coming into school early. She does her thing during the school day. She plays the French horn, takes lessons after school. She dances twice a week, maintains excellent grades. And part of our day, after my husband, who also teaches here, coaches and gets home after dark sometimes, part of our day, the important part of our day is the dinner. And the time that we have to spend together as a family, kind of going over the day, the homework and everything else, and pushing everything back an hour just sort of seems like we're going to be taking all of those things, pushing them back an hour and forcing the hour later into the evening, and losing any of that time that we may have gained starting the day a little bit later. I know we talked about jobs for kids after school. You know, a lot of stores in the community are open until 6 o'clock. And if students work, some of them work from 3 to 6. They need those jobs. They use them for experience in life. In addition, the sports, which I know is always up there. And then we always have to get back to the studying, the study time. And then again, the quality family time. And I just feel like, you know, there's no ideal, but things work. We were all educated in an environment where it did work. It was earlier, and you know, there's no easy answer. I just think that we need to pay attention to all of the elements and all of the quality time that is necessary for the mental health of our children and our families at the same time. So,
thank you. Okay. Any other burning questions or thoughts from the board? I feel like we have a lot to kind of chew on and digest and see what to do next with. Do you guys feel like you have enough?
And I can tell you that today in our conversation prior to presenting, one of the things we did talk about is if we were asked to make a recommendation, where would we stand? And as you probably are feeling, we felt the same way, that there's pros and cons and there's positive and negatives on each side. We don't necessarily want to give up the option, but we realize how difficult the option is, but we also realize how important it is. So it's something that I really think we have to think about and take some time and create questions and then see if there's some way that we can come up with a more clear recommendation. I don't think it's something that we can do quickly. At least we didn't feel we could do it quickly. And so we wanted to come with a clear recommendation, but it was just too difficult with all the different characteristics.
And I just feel like we're gonna have so much different sides. It's going to be such a personal choice to what to a family situation. Like your family situation sounds like you want everyone's close, so you want it early. Whereas another family situation, if they work in the city or in Westchester, it sounds like, oh, that'd be great. My kids don't get out till 4. That's perfect. So it's so I don't think we're ever going to get everybody's for this. It's going to be and rightfully so. It should be a personal decision, and so we're gonna get a lot of, after it's all said and done. We're going to be, I feel as though we're going to be very split on the way people feel about it based on how it affects them on a personal matter.
Right. And I do feel that probably the recommendation is going to be that it's just too complex at this point in time, but we did just present so much information to you, and we want to give you the opportunity to think about it.
So why don't we keep it on the agenda for the next couple of meetings, say? It gives us a chance to think over, ask any additional questions that we have, get additional input from the rest of the community.
And the November workshop meeting will be about before and after school care possibilities. And that's, linked to the possibility of a shift, but it's also separate from that as well, something that we want to talk about. So that might also give some more information about, is this possible? Okay, so to be continued. Thank you again to our administrators for putting all of this together. We're going to do a little flip-flop here with D and E so that we can get our students and our administrators out of here. So we're going to go into information reports, letter E, with our student representatives. Are there student representatives here?
I'd just like to quickly introduce the student reps. And I guess I'll just start with that. I'd just like to welcome and congratulate Abigail Platt and Noah Bingham, who are our student council president and vice president, who will be this year's, be here for our board meetings to report on this from the students' point of view. So Noah, do you want to start? Yeah,
I'll start. So what I'm going to be talking about is a trip that the 7th graders actually went on today that relates to our surroundings, and we went on it last year, me and Abigail did, and I know we both had a really fun time. And I think it's a trip that definitely shows how great of an area and how much there is around here that we can use for school. So what the trip is the entire 7th grade split up into 2 locations, one which is in Long Dock Park in Beacon and the other one which is in Little Stony Point. And they participated in, I hope I get the name right, it's a day in the life of the Hudson River program. And Haldane was invited by Scenic Hudson and the Hudson Highland Land Trust to participate in it. And what this is schools ranging from New York City to Albany take measurements of what the river is, the salinity level, pH, and they seine, which is using a net to catch fish and measuring the weight and the size of them to show how the Hudson is doing. So what it shows is it gives a snapshot of one day in the Hudson, and it shows how much we can do education-wise with this resource that we have so close to us. So that's something that is cool and that happened in the middle school today.
Very well done.
So I'm Abigail Platt. I'm the president of the Middle School Student Council, and I just pretty much got back from my soccer game, so that's why I'm still in uniform. And we won 2-0. So we're doing a lot of PBLs in the middle school, which stands for project-based learning. And that's when you combine either 2 classes to work on a project to learn about either, if you're doing history, you learn about the past and you can relate to the present. And today, today we actually just went over our project and did our presentations for one that joined ELA and social studies. Over the summer we read Fahrenheit 451 and how we learned about the censorship in that book and everything in that and at the end of the book, the civilization is destroyed in a war. And then we are currently learning about Reconstruction during social studies, so we decided to join those two ideas and create our own society that we think would be the best compared to all mistakes that were made in the past. So we did that, and some people's opinions of it is that they don't really like PBLs because it just takes away from the learning, but there's a lot of people who like it too. But last year we had a slight mishap that we did a project that lasted 6 months. So we really went to the makerspace every day for 6 months and ended up not even finishing the project, which is why a few of us might not have the most good feelings towards PBLs. But this current one, a lot of people liked more because we had deadlines that kept us on track, and our teachers were helping us a lot more to understand how we actually can get it done rather than just wasting time talking with friends about how to survive 96 hours till the Stone Age. So that's what the project was actually called, 96 Hours to the Stone Age. So the PBL was successful. Actually, a lot of people enjoyed the presentations, which we are continuing tomorrow during class. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Teresa, that's Stephen, right? Yep.
So hi, yeah, I'm Teresa, and don't really know what to talk about. I can talk about we're going on the Quebec trip tomorrow, which I understand took a long time for International Club because we had planned to do it in the spring, but not enough students signed up. I know it took a while to get to like the board and everything, but finally it's tomorrow, and I'm going on the trip. I'm really excited. I know we're going to a few museums. We're going to actually go to a Canadian school, and the French students will get to like try to interact with the students there and like speak French with them, and then the Spanish students will obviously like try their best to like communicate with everybody, but they'll speak English there. And I think at the end we're gonna have like lunch with the students there, so it'll be nice. And I know we're going just visiting like very historic like places, and I think it's just gonna be like a really good trip overall. And hopefully we can still like go on like different parts of like switch Quebec to Montreal. And we had an international club meeting within the officers, and we discussed how hopefully in the future we could do some like kind of trip for Spanish, whether it be like Mexico, it could do Puerto Rico or something nearby, and then like in the future like eventually go to France or Spain. But that's like way in the future, but hopefully we can reach that. Yeah, that's kind of what I say.
Stephen Julius, class rep to the board. I just want to talk about last week was our homecoming senior night festivities, and I just thought it was a great week for all our sports members. I mean, everybody won, so it was a great week. I mean, volleyball started off on Wednesday night, beat Putt Valley, and then the football team won on Friday night, and both soccer teams won on Saturday. So it was a great week, and I just want to personally thank Mr. Piazza for all the work him and all of he had a whole crew help out parking on Friday night, and Mr. Solemn, like, unbelievable. He comes in and has done a great job so far, and I just want to thank you for everything you've done for us and all the administrators and teachers who are so understanding, because I know Spirit Week probably sucks for them because we missing so much class, but but anyway, I just want to thank everybody for everything they've done for us and just make it a memorable experience for all of us. So thank you.
Okay, Mr. Harrington.
I'm up. Okay. I just want to kind of touch a little bit on school culture and climate. And, you know, when you walk the halls of a building, you can see evidence of artifacts and certain rituals that really define a school culture and a school climate, including the things that are said and kind of institutionalized each day. And I just want to take a moment and note the 388 elementary students that we had out at the flagpole last Friday as we all recited our character pledge, our Haldane pledge. So it was that, you know, that's certainly a pledge that we say every morning and a commitment that we make in terms of how we treat each other and the values in our building. And it was just a nice opportunity to have everyone together. I want to thank Danielle McCarthy, who's the chair of our Gang Up for Good committee, for helping to organize that brief assembly. So thank you.
Two quick things. I would just like to recognize the rest of the students that are now our student council representatives. I obviously mentioned Abigail and Noah, but Riley Johansson is the treasurer. Molly Altucher is the secretary. In 6th grade, the class rep is Katie Shields. In 7th grade, the class rep is Graham McGrath. And in 8th grade, Jagger Beechek. So I would just like to congratulate all of them. In addition, I'd like to talk just a little bit about on October 7th, we had an assembly here for the students called Chasing It. And it was about the opiate and heroin epidemic that our nation is facing. We were able to get all of our high school students to participate in that, in addition to our 8th grade students. And our 8th grade students, Garrison, came over and watched the video with us. And we did some breakout sessions following that. And it was kind of the first time that we've done something like this, and we'll continue to do this. But I would just like to thank Frank Reel from Chasing It. I'd like to thank the CTC and Gina Van Nosdale for all their hard work in terms of making the different things happen. We do have our next CTC meeting tomorrow at 3 o'clock. I hope that I'm not stealing Brian's thunder, but Haldane Minds, we have a new Twitter feed that I would encourage you all to follow. That's called Haldane Minds. And a lot of the things that we're talking about and you're seeing, we are working on tweeting these things out during the course of the day.
A little bit of shameless self-promotion. The best compliment to a leader is the success and skills of those who he or she leads. And so our students have performed brilliantly this evening on many different occasions, and I wouldn't want to add anything else. And colleagues and teachers, same story. So I'd like to, as they say in Congress, cede the rest of my time to Deputy Paul Piazza to talk about a little program he's working on in the middle school and high school.
Good evening, everyone. Deputy Piazza, Putnam County Sheriff's. I'm the new school resource officer here at Haldane. What Brian was starting to talk about is a program that we got involved with through the PTA called Say Something. And it's based out of a company, non-for-profit, out of, born from the Sandy Hook tragedy out in Connecticut. And the company's called Sandy Hook Promise. They do a couple different things. What we're working on right now is their Say Something campaign, and this is actually the Say Something Call to Action Week. It's a program, it's built for 6th to 12th graders, and it really talks about identifying problems in schools where we've seen violence or different addictive behaviors, or maybe even suicidal ideations that have gone underreported, but they had gone shared with other students, other peers. So we're trying to open up the door for students, whether that's through a school resource officer or a favorite teacher or a sociologist, anyone in the school, any trusted adult. And it really 3 key points. The first is to how to recognize certain problems, bad behaviors, things like that, how to act, and what it means, the difference between saying something and telling on someone, and then also how to bring it all together, obviously. We want to make sure that we put the right kids with the right people. This week we've been in the lunchrooms, kind of doing a lunch and learn with the kids, which is kind of taking flight a little bit. It was kind of new for them, new for us. Thursday we're going to be wearing green in support of the initiative. And over the next few weeks, we're going to be getting into some of the classrooms
and talking to the kids really in depth about what it is to say something, taking stock in your community. And really the program, though, was born from school violence and suicide, really can be applied across everything. I mean, we were just talking about chasing it. We talked to the kids about that, about you see your friend having, in a crisis or having problem behavior, a radical change from what they're usually doing, and how to put that problem with the right adult. So I appreciate all the support. Thank you from the PTA or to the PTA. Alex Tuberoff's been a tremendous help. She's been down here with me, talking to the kids, getting the conversation going, and we're going to keep the conversation going. So thanks everybody for their support.
Hi, good evening, everybody. So 6 weeks here I am at Haldane, and I think for now I'm hit the ground running. My feet are wet, and I'm pretty acclimated in the district. I've been really spending a lot of time in all of the 3 buildings, really attending a lot of team meetings, being visible, being present, having an open door policy, running a lot of the department team meetings as well, and going to the faculty meetings. Also presented with Julia at the faculty meeting already regarding RTI as just kind of a refresher and a reminder about remediation. So I've really been making a point to understand the Haldane structure and culture and being visible, and also establishing and strengthening a lot of community relations as well. So I've been on the phone contacting a lot of mental health agencies, directors, our out-of-district school placements as well. I actually was at Carafin this morning, one of our out-of-district school placements, and I plan to attend and visit all of them as well this year, so I can see where our out-of-district students are. And also just planning a meet and greet as well on October 28th for a lot of directors and agencies and private practitioners to come and to meet not only myself but our staff, our guidance counselors, psychologists, social workers, and all of that. So that will be happening next week. Also, Dr. Bowers and I are offering a meet and greet tomorrow at 10 o'clock at the Makerspace. So I hope that parents, community members all come out tomorrow if they're available tomorrow morning to talk about the department goals and also the strategic plan as well. And in addition to that, I have also been working a lot with the Hudson River Valley Consortium. So Pot Valley, Garrison, and Haldane have a consortium, so we're starting to use that a little bit more. We're actually accepting a student in from Pot Valley and also sending a student over to Pot Valley. So that's something new that we've been utilizing more, which is a cost benefit and also a great neighboring networking connection that we have. So I've been spending a lot of time just building those relationships and being visible and being present and establishing those relationships. Thanks.
Good evening, everyone. I just want to start off by thanking everyone that came out for homecoming week. It was a great week. We had a lot of great events. Our kids did an exceptional job. I also wanted to thank all our different sports associations who helped run the events during the week. Without you guys, it wouldn't be possible. I'd also like to personally thank Deputy Piaz and his cadets as well. Did a great job up here. I'd also want to give a brief summary on our fall sports as we wrap up our fall season. Just want to congratulate our girls cross country team and our varsity girls soccer team for each winning their league championships this year. And as we head into sectional play, I just want to let everyone know all of our varsity teams have qualified. So please come out, support our athletes, wish them best of luck. And as we go forward, know that we're representing Haldane with a lot of pride. About half hour ago, I got an email from a cross country coach today. Our cross-country team went to a meet, and our kids thanked the person who ran the meet, gave the person flowers, and the person just expressed a level of gratitude on how well and respected our kids were. And it's something that makes me proud as an athletic director because we have students who are not just great athletes, but they're great people. So keep up the good work, guys, and best of luck in sectionals.
Just in case anybody's interested, it's Mets and Cubs 1-1, bottom of the first. Okay, I've got 2 things to talk about, but I don't want to steal Dr. Bauer's thunder. I know on the agenda said you're going to talk about monoliths. So
go ahead, you can, whatever you want.
Okay. October 12th, Columbus Day, they came in here, Central Hudson came in, put a new transformer in. So this building now is ready. It did produce power that day, they showed me. One thing, we just have one little snag with this building, and it's very minimal. We'll be up and running by the end of the week. Central Hudson just wanted them to reevaluate some of the windings they put in here. I had an inspector out today. He's happy with everything. He checked the other 2 buildings. He was happy with that. So far, the district office has saved over 11 trees. And the high school hasn't been up as long. They saved a little over 3 trees. So it's on a website. And this one should be on the website by the end of the week. And that's it for Monolith. We also, last week, had our building condition survey, which is required by SED once every 5 years. We had the engineers coming in on Wednesday and Thursday of last week, looking at our structure, mechanics, and all that type of thing. And it was a good learning experience for me. I learned a lot from them. But I'm very proud to say that pretty much everything we had on our spreadsheet, from the maintenance staff and custodial staff and the Buildings and Grounds Committee, is what they hit on. They really didn't hit much more. We'll have our complete report from them by November 15th, and we'll move on from there then with the Buildings and Grounds Committee and to recommend what we should be doing in the coming year. Thank you.
Good. Do you want to just see if there's any correspondence or communication, and then let people kind of...
Sure, but there is one thing I'd like before everybody leaves to do. So yes, we can do that, and then I'll just make a quick statement when you're done with the correspondence.
Does anybody have any, we're doing a little communication from the public now. I'm kind of jumping around the agenda here. Does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Okay, so I'll turn it over to Dr. Bowers, then maybe we'll take like a little mini break so people can exit if they'd like to. Not that you have to. You still have a really compelling agenda, but I'm just in case you have to.
Well, I just want to share that there, as you see, there's some bags on the table in front of the board members, and this is Board Member Appreciation Month. And we want to say thank you for all the time, energy, and effort. I don't think anybody understands how much is done behind the scenes and how much time and dedication is constantly part of what we do together. So would you mind just pulling out the little... Yeah. Well, that's one. A lot of kisses. But we're sharing for the first time our Haldane mugs. And on the back it says, "Thanks for all you do." So,
very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. So thank you to the board members.
Okay. Great. So let's take a little mini 5 minutes break.
And there are cookies up here if anybody would like to take one on your way out. Just to introduce it a little bit. As you have probably heard, and what you heard here tonight, we are continuing on with our staff development with project-based learning, which we're now describing more as authentic learning experiences that create deeper learning. And this is all part of the strategic plan, so you're going to see many different things kind of rolling into one another. And you're going to see that we are beginning to discuss a lot of unique new types of situations that we're exploring and we're looking into, and we're making decisions as to best practices and what that means for Haldane. And so today I was down at the Apple Corporation in New York City. They invited a number of districts down and that are moving towards kind of one-on-one initiatives, and the districts that are living the spirit of what is kind of integration of technology to help learning expand. They're talking to educators about reflecting on our practices, taking a look at where we want to go, what is going to enhance our students' learning. And also something that we've talked about is understanding who we are and branding it. And so a lot of what we talked about today is how do we define who we are and how do we define what we're looking for and what we would like to see in the years ahead. And this is, as you can tell, just kind of all swirling together with what we're talking about with the strategic plan. And you know that the kind of instruction that we're talking about today is very different than the kind of instruction that we experienced in education. And as we begin to really move forward and as we begin to look at some new pedagogical practices, we're finding ourselves in the terminology that we've used a number of times is we're in the messy middle. We're beginning to understand how instruction is different using the kind of deeper learning, authentic learning experiences. How do we create an environment where students feel that they have the independence in their learning and the support of the teachers and the coach, the instructional coach, to move forward, and how does that enhance the instructional practices of the district. So one of the things that they gave us as a charge was to define who we are, and they told us we had a half an hour of time and we could present who we are in any way we wanted. And it was interesting because the Putnam Valley district was there, the Scarsdale district was there. So some of the districts that we already work very closely with were our partners, and everybody got up and presented what they believed that their district was in different ways. And each of the districts did it very differently, and there were 8 districts presented. So I just wanted to quickly show you ours, which was, I thought was very cute after a very short period of time.
Who is Haldane? We are a district focused on students' needs and the evolution of the holistic adult. We are forward-thinking educators, creating the foundations not just for the graduate of today, but of 2028, including preparing students for the world they will encounter, developing the mindful global citizen, and emphasizing academic needs and the soft skills necessary for success. We're all in. Are you ready?
So that was our little elevator description of who we are, and we had a great time making it, so I just thought I would share that with you. And you probably will see something, either this one or something similar on our website, so people can click into it and hear a very short amount of information that hopefully tells a lot. It was Leah and Simon, and I went down. Brian is part of the group that will be going down. He just wasn't able to go today, so I'm sure that we'll be back and forth. And one of the things that they were very insistent on is to have some of the administrators from the districts. Mamaroneck was also there. Their superintendent was there. Putnam Valley superintendent was there. And I was there. So we had a number of superintendents, a number of principals, and a lot of technology directors and people that are associated with the districts that way. So we just wanted to share that with you. We will continue to share the successes of our strategic plan as we begin to roll out the process. Again, as you know, we adopted the strategic plan in June. And we're just beginning to launch the strategic plan now. We have a group of teachers that will be going down, and part of right now what we're doing with our strategic plan is interfacing with the New Tech Network. And this is the company and the group of people and fine educators, national educators that we are associating with to start moving into this kind of 21st century type of learning. And part of the process is for visitations to go to places that have been using these types of instructional practices for many years, and they're very well integrated into the fabric of the school. So tomorrow we have a group of 17 people going down to the Tech Valley High, which is in Albany, and it's on the University of Albany campus, and it's within the Nanoscience and Engineering building. And we have teachers, administrators, people from the PTA, the foundation, and the board that will be going tomorrow. So it's the first visit. We also will be taking a second visit on the 9th of November, and we're going to be determining who will be on the second wave soon. We also are about to launch our third institute in this deeper learning and authentic experiences here with about 20 of our teachers that have not yet been trained that will be launching into it. And the momentum is building, and we're starting to see things come together. So,
Sounds good.
so good. We talked a little bit about the solar project already. One of the things that we were a little worried about is the fact that we had to put the new transformer in the back of the building, and they had to go through the garden and the children's garden. And I can tell you that they were very careful, and there was no damage at all. So that was very positive. They started the electricity was being generated from this building. It's already being generated from the high school and the district office. And they started originally at the beginning of this week, and there was a couple of glitches. They fixed those. We're starting back up, and we believe that all 3 buildings will be online as of tomorrow. So the solar project is coming to an end. And yeah.
It's coming to a beginning, really.
Coming to a beginning. The project itself.
What we can do is, because we have a workshop topic in December to review talk about the solar project, the energy performance contract, the 5-year facilities plan, we should consider inviting Monolith to come and talk to us about the project, show us the web portal where you can view the real-time electricity generation statistics and see the history. I think, if a vendor does a good job for us, I think it's a nice way to thank them.
And they really put their best foot forward during this whole summer and to where we are now to create a very unobtrusive project, and they've done a good job. Yeah. And I did pass around, if you did see, there's some information that's starting to be generated about the number of trees, the carbon footprint, the amount of kilowatt hours that have been generated and then put into the grid. And so our students will be able to track all 3 buildings at this point. And yes, so I think we saved 11 trees from one and 3 trees from the other. So
is that a public site that anybody can go to, or do you need to log in?
Well, there is a login, and we'll put that on our website so people can.
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah, and so, but it is something that people can come in and keep, abreast of what's happening with our solar panels. So.
Are any of the classes integrating this into their classwork?
As soon as, when everything is finished and it's all going, they will. I mean, this is something that will be discussed in many, especially the science, probably social studies kind of interactions with both. And it'll be available for the public to see as well.
Well, one thing that this particular company offered us at the initiation of this project was that they would have somebody come down and talk to the kids about the engineering aspect of the project. And so
there's curriculum that they offer.
Yeah.
So that's coming. So our next Board of Education meeting will be a business meeting November 3rd, and we are going to have at 6 o'clock, the board will be going into a mini retreat with our district attorney, and then the business meeting will follow at 7 o'clock, so we just wanted to remind you of that. We are about to also host our first community leaders group meeting. And we're going to try it before a Board of Education meeting in case people would like to stay and join us for the board meeting. We will have November 17th at 6 o'clock from 6 to 7. We're going to be inviting people in, and we'll be sharing some updates about what's going on within the district. We'll be answering any questions. We'll be giving kind of a chronology of events that is related to our strategic plan. So we have about a dozen people who have signed up to come. We have other invitations that are going out for people that have an interest. And once again, if anybody would like to join us, it's open to the public. Anybody has an interest in knowing what we're doing here. Again, it's Tuesday, November 17th at 6 p.m. And we'll more than likely have it in the home ec room right next door. So,
Okay,
thank
very
you.
good. So we're skipping ahead, right? We did our information reports already, so we're going to go down to letter F to the committee minutes. The Health and Safety Committee and the Technology Committee have submitted their minutes from their last meeting for anyone to look at if they'd like. And the Communities That Care Coalition is not, an official committee of the Board of Education, but it is something that we participate in as much as possible as a member of the community. We do have a board member liaison to that coalition, and that board member is Margaret Parr. And so we had asked Margaret if she would just give a little, as if she was doing the committee minutes, just a little touch base on kind of what's going on with them for the board.
So the Phillipstown Coalitions of Care is 10 months in. They have coordinated all 12 town sectors and had a key leader breakfast event a couple of weeks ago. The mandate that came from that, thank you, was to go ahead and move forward. They've moved forward and they've split into 3 separate subcommittees. The subcommittees are assessment, capacity, and youth involvement and parent community resources. So that's their next step, to kind of set up each one of these subcommittees and see what they can do to move forward in each one of those. Their next meeting is tomorrow, like Julia said, at 3 o'clock at the Desmond Fish Library. And just going forward, their monthly meetings are going to tend to be the 3rd Wednesdays of the month at 3 o'clock in rotating locations. The one thing Gina did ask me to pass on is that a lot of the information is going out through Facebook. And so if you want information, you should like the page Phillipstown Coalitions That Care. And they've gotten a lot of following since they've put it up, but that's where they're putting all the information until they get a website together.
Great, thanks. Thank you. Sounds like they're doing important work. Yeah. Okay, any communication from the public? Moving into correspondence, there are 2 letters listed, one from Mr. Thomas Campanile, who basically is just recommending that the board approves the audit report that we all listened to earlier. And then one is from Michael Gingulis, asking questions about the Super Schools grant predominantly, and also asking questions about financial reports and what is and is not available to the public. And in terms of the financial reporting question, it did bring up a question for the board of what we want to make public on board docs, what we want to make public just so somebody can come in and pick up a printed copy of it, what we don't, what we want out there, what we don't want out there, how we want to put it out there. So we're going to be discussing that a little bit more as a group at our next business meeting. So we can kind of gather some thoughts and talk about it. There's a few different options that we have. I think the introduction of board docs has kind of changed things a little bit in a way that we haven't really thought out yet. Because if we just leave financial reports online, that means they're online for anybody to look at any time. And how do we feel about that? Do we want to do it differently? So that's something we're going to discuss next at our next business meeting. And the Super Schools grant, I think Diana's going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Okay, consent agenda minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion? These are the minutes from the Board of Education meeting held on October 6th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Consent agenda financial. May I have a motion, please?
A motion.
Second. Good. Any discussion? Just to say that the piano, just like all donations, correct me if I'm wrong, but all donations need to be accepted by the board. So this is us just officially accepting it. And we say thank you to have a nice piano. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Consent agenda personnel. May I have a motion, please?
Motion.
Second.
Any discussion?
Yeah, just a question. It looks like there's some budgetary impact on items 7 and 8 there.
Yeah, approval to extend the summer records management appointment. That's been something that that has been done in the past. And it's whatever is needed. If there is a need, there is some support that comes. And so I don't believe we had anybody this summer, but we're realizing that we need to have some more record management at this point.
We had one position filled, 2 have been budgeted, and we had one. It's within budget.
So we have budget for this?
We have budget, yes.
That was my only.
Because we budgeted for 2 positions, we only filled 1 for the summer. And needless to say, we didn't get all of the work done. So we're hoping to continue for the rest of the year and use those funds.
Yeah, that was my only question regarding 7 and 8. We're adding
Quarter of a 6th period assignment for AIS services, which are required services for students that need additional support.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any further communication from the public? Moving into new business. We have an approval of a resolution of authorization. So, Julia, do you want to?
Would you like me to give you some background on that?
Yeah, do you want to? Oh, yeah, you can do it before she reads it, sure.
So right now, most districts in New York State are looking for what is called the hardship waiver. And basically what that is saying that the district was supposed to go into negotiations, which we did over the summer, to try to reinvent or recreate our APPR. And it was a very difficult thing to do because we still haven't gotten all the information that we need from the state education department, but it was something that we were supposed to do as all the teachers left for the summer. So we did have our faculty members that came in and had conversations over the summer, so we were lucky because people were willing to come in. But there's no way that we're going to be able to meet all the requirements in order to have it done for the middle of November. So sometime between the 1st and the 30th of October, we have to ask for an extension, which they're calling a hardship waiver. And we have to explain that we made the effort to meet and we had the conversations, but we're just not there yet. So there may be a couple of waivers that are necessary for our district. I know that most districts are certainly not at the point that they can go into the review room and support their new APPR plan. So you're giving us permission to apply for the hardship waiver, basically.
And I'm going to assume that this is kind of typical, that most schools are probably
I think most schools,
asking
yes.
for this extension.
I would be surprised if anybody's not.
And then part of the issue was, and I can't remember the exact chronology, but that and you touched on this, but a big part of an issue is that this request came toward the end of the year, and so it was just really very difficult to make the kind of progress necessary between June and then when school starts November 15th, because anybody who knows anything about schools knows that, the beginning of school, there are a lot of things to do, And so I like how they call this hardship, but, it's just like, yeah.
We just didn't have the time
course,
in order
yeah.
to meet the requirements.
Any other questions? Okay, Julie, do you want to?
Sure thing.
read that?
The recommended action is that the Board of Education approves the following resolution of authorization. Be it resolved that the Board of Education President is hereby authorized to sign, along with the Superintendent of Schools, the signature page for SED Hardship Waiver Number 1, covering the period from November 15, 2015 through March 15, 2016, to allow for the continuation of the negotiations process for filing an APPR plan compliant with the requirements of Section 3012D of the Education Law. A copy of said application shall be incorporated within the minutes of this meeting.
Okay, can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, so we're going to move into just a little conversation about the Super Schools grant. I think within that conversation, Diana will answer the questions posed in Michael's letter that is available for people to read, as well as just give us a little update on how is it going.
So I briefly mentioned at the last meeting that we were considering applying for something called the Super Schools grant. And basically the Super School Challenge was posed to American schools on September 11th, and it was the opportunity for school districts or schools to recreate and rethink their high schools. And if you are chosen as a recipient of the grant, it can be up to $10 million in grant money that comes to the district. As I think I said the last time, chances are we are not necessarily going to be a school that they have an interest in, but what we discussed and what we talked about is applying for the grant based on our new strategic plan. Last year we had all of the community come together, a lot of conversation, a lot of decision making, and we believe that we have in front of us a great strategic plan that is bringing schools to the next level and the next generation of 21st century schools. So we are moving forward with the strategic plan, and simultaneously, as we start looking at the components within the strategic plan, we will be applying for the grant. So we had 2 people who joined our administrative team the other day to help us kind of begin to vision where we're going and to understand what the strategic plan will look like and start to put those pieces together and to determine what we would be putting in the right now it's like a skeletal structure of what the Super Schools grant would look like, and they will let you know once you submit that beginning piece whether or not you're going to move on to the next stage. So if by chance we do move on to the next stage, it's going to be a much more hearty discussion and bringing a lot of things together. But what we did the other day, we invited 2 people in. One was our staff developer from the New Tech Network, and the New Tech Network actually said that they would help support our writing of the grant, so it wouldn't be something that we gave a lot of time to because we simply can't. And so she came in. This is a free service. This is something that her time here and the grant writing is something that will provide gratis. We also had, and again, this was gratis, we had Dr. Paul Yellen from the Yellen Center for Mind, Brain, and Education come and talk to us about the component within our strategic plan for learning profiles for our students. And we spent the day just talking about who we are, what the plan is, what the strategic plan is, where we plan on going. And the work that we did the other day with Stacia Snow and Paul Yellen, first of all, there was no charge for it. This was a discovery process. And this will happen anyway. This is something that we would need to, we would be pushing forward with the components of the strategic plan. And if by chance we get some money, I doubt we're going to get the full 10 million, but if we do get some money, this will help us implement the strategic plan without using the money from the general fund. And that's our hope. So we learned a lot about ourselves. We began to talk about what we would put into the components of the strategic plan and the components of the Super Schools grant and the Super Schools Challenge. So that's where we are right now. The grant is being written. We have to have all the components ready to go, and we will submit by the 15th of November. And if for some reason they accept us, then we'll be coming back and we'll be talking to you more about it.
We have to change tape.
Still really confused about this, because to me, when I read through that, it didn't look like it was going to a school. It looked like it was going to whatever team came up with.
Right.
And so the team could be people from anywhere, which meant Haldane, and I'm all in for this will line it up to the strategic plan and all of that stuff has to take place anyway. But if we were to get money, it doesn't go to the school, it goes to the team, is how I'm reading it. Is that right?
It depends on how you write the grant. So the whole purpose of the Super Schools Challenge is to rethink the high school of tomorrow. And so who would be part of our team would be the Haldane School District, the New Tech Network, and Dr. Yellen's company that would help us to create our learner profile. So everything, and I don't know if you've written grants before, but you specify what's going where, and it's very well delineated. So it's not that it's money that's just going to come into this group. There are very specific guidelines, and one of the things that they're looking for, and if you look at the grant, they're looking for information that is based on brain-based education. How do high school students learn best? They're looking at space, and they're looking at the type of space and the type of educational environment in which students excel, and any other components with it. So when we talk to the grant writer about what would set Haldane or any district that applies apart, there has to be something unique. And the unique component of our strategic plan is the development of the learner profiles and working with students to know who they are as learners and how they can best work with all the things that are offered by Haldane to make them learn in the best way they can. And so that's the whole purpose behind the learner profile. So we are already working with the New Tech Network. This is something that we plan on working with them, and then for the next 3 to 5 years as we wean off, and then we build capacity here, so we no longer need to work with this community. We need to create a learner profile that would match what we believe in as a learning community and make sure that we support student learning. And so that would be the way the grant is written. I think that if we did get some money, we would look very carefully at how to spend it and increase the amount of space that we need at the high school level, because it is problematic. And so all of this would be well written into the grant. You have to put very specific things and explain very carefully what you'd be using the funds for. So I don't know if that answered your question.
Yeah, that's not the way I read it. That's my concern. When I went in and read this, I read it completely differently. Mm-hmm. It didn't read as, and I could be wrong, it didn't read as a grant like that. It read as a contest and a challenge. And the teams that went in were, it could be a kid in California and somebody in LA and somebody all over, and they were going to build this wherever they wanted to build this. And they were going to give them the money to do it where Steve Jobs' wife wanted it done. It didn't read to me like any school in particular was going to get any money.
Yeah, I had a similar read also, because I've looked quite closely at the information that's available for this contest, which mm-hmm. is what they call it, a contest with winners and prizes. And the requirements are extremely specific. For example, you must spend the prize money solely for the purpose of the funding the construction and operation of the contest winners XQ Super School. It's very much, the contest takes place in multiple phases, and it's absolutely true that the first phase aligns extremely well with the implementation of the strategic plan. The one thing that the competition does emphasize is involvement of community and students. There has to be a very strong student voice in this. Sure. So I don't see that happening yet, and that concerns me.
Let me just ask about that, because I'm wondering, the way I'm seeing it is the formation of the strategic plan was something that our community formed, right? That students were involved with, community members, teachers, et cetera, et cetera. So to me, that's kind of that and piece. Students. That's what, the students did. So to me, that's the piece of the community involvement has already been kind of done. Is there something in addition that we need to involve the community with that I'm not aware of?
We have to define our team, and we already know who the team will be. So it's not that there's going to be other people coming in to our team. Ours is very specific, and all it would be about is the strategic plan. And one of the things that we talked about is how vague the information is right now. You know what you have to do. You have to give kind of an overview for the first phase, and then they don't say very much about the second phase. And the philosophy, from what we're guessing, is that they don't want to give any parameters because they don't want to thwart anybody's ideas. And depending on what's out there, there may be 100 schools or 100 different teams that have things that are far more inventive than what we have. And if that's the case, then all we've done is describe our strategic plan.
Right.
And so that's what we're at this point. And you also can choose, if there is another phase, you can choose at any time to go forward or not. And so we didn't want to just shut it down without saying, you know, what the heck, maybe we'll try it. But it's not the focus. We're going to be doing what we are doing regardless of the super schools challenge or not, because this is what we're doing to create our strategic plan. It would be nice if we had some additional funding to help us meet our goals. And it's going to be obviously a little bit slower, and it's going to be more of a step-by-step trickle as we try to meet all the requirements of the plan. If we don't, and we're going to have to figure out some pretty fancy finances in order to meet those goals. But we have the charge. We know what the district is asking of us, and we're moving forward.
No, I certainly have no problem with the first phase of the competition because it does align very well with what we're already doing. But you can look at the details for the later phases, and it does involve very much of a broadening of scope, and it's far broader in scope, I think, than what we did last year in our own community planning effort. It's about the different categories are human capital and training, facilities, technology, and time, implementation capacity, performance management and evaluation, governance, financial model, and sustainability. And because it's so much broader, we cannot be putting together any kind of a vision without including the community in the creation of that vision. And that's not something that you can do quickly. And the timeline for this competition is extremely short. First phase is due November 15th. Second phase is due probably in January, and then then the fourth phase is due in this is March or April is the deadline for the fourth phase. So it's a very short timeline, a ton of work that would need to be done in a very short period of time, and I'm just a little concerned that we don't have the bandwidth to take on that kind of additional work at this time.
And the fact that we do have the New Tech Network helping us and supporting the creation or the writing of it and the development of it. We've done one day of real discussion and learning about the district and where we're going at this point. And we will be available to probably look at the basic grant within the next couple of days. And I think Brian's still here. Do you have anything you'd like to say, Brian? Okay. I don't want to be the sole speaker here.
And also, it sounds to me like it's no harm, no foul at the moment to go through the process of doing this first stage of the application. It's a lot of the work's already done with strategic plan. We're building maybe perhaps more energy and synthesis around what we want to implement, the action plans. We're bringing in people to help us do it free of charge. It's not costing us any money. It's not going to be that much work for us. It's kind of like in my opinion, it's kind of like a why not at this stage. I see what Peter and Margaret are saying about the second and third steps of it seem a little bit more involved, but we don't even know if we're going to get there yet, right? Like in November, we are given the, yep, great, go ahead, or the, no, sorry, this is where it stops. And if we get the no, the work that's happened up until then is still work that was going to have to happen anyway.
Right.
So we're just front loading the work, and it seems to me like kind of why not, right? If you guys are willing to do it, why not?
And I can tell you that if it doesn't seem like it's going to be a benefit to the district, we're not going to keep, doing it. We have to see what it is, and again, because it is relatively vague at this point, it's no harm by getting our thinking kind of aligned and moving into the first phase, and then we'll see what the next is. And if it's bigger than life, then we don't have the capacity to do bigger than life, and we understand that.
Yeah, I mean, in my own experience of somebody who writes a lot of grants and has to make a lot of plans these ways, in this kind of way, one of the reasons why I liked the idea, there were a couple of reasons why I was really quite supportive of the administration taking this step of this first phase of the grant. And one was, I think, that being forced to really think and write in really specific ways can be enormously productive, and really move people's thinking and thinking forward. I mean, it just does. I mean, and I think for people who do this kind of work, I think a lot of people would agree with that. The other reason why, I guess, not to be discouraging, but this is a huge effort, and I figured that the likelihood that a school like Haldane would move forward was fairly small. Although I do certainly hear that if something should happen, and that's a next step, that's something that we do need to really consider about what the implications are. Yeah. I liked and really respected and really appreciated that it was not just the fact that it was something that the administration was really enthusiastic and excited about, which I think is important, but that the plans for moving forward with this undertaking did really address the fact that there's external help writing the grant. It's not costing the school district anything. I mean, it's sort of bringing in some beneficial resources to help us accomplish, or help the district accomplish, begin to accomplish this really ambitious strategic plan. But I do, I definitely, I have not read the documents probably as carefully as I actually read a lot of the research on their website. That's what I was most interested in. Big surprise. And actually really appreciate that it's really grounded in what we know about kids learning. But do, really appreciate that if something were to happen, and because it is a pretty big undertaking, it would be something that that there would need to be more input and thought possibly about the implications, about what it would be. But yeah.
And the decision may be made for us already,
It may be,
Yeah.
There's ads for it all. Where I work in Manhattan is sort of the tech, like a new tech area. There's a lot of billboards about the project. So anyway, they're nice.
Any other questions?
Well, did Michael get his
Yeah, I was going to
questions
ask
answered?
Michael. Did you feel like you got all your questions answered, Michael?
I met with Mrs. Bowers on the Monday and had most of them answered. So
Okay.
I'm good, and what you talked about tonight, I'm very good.
Great. Okay. Okay, so we'll just be kept posted. You'll let us know how it goes.
We'll keep you posted.
Okay, so the meeting that will never end. We're now moving into the discussion. We're having some Board of Education changes, and so I'm going to turn it over to Peter to share those changes with us.
Okay. So today I submitted a letter to our district clerk, Julia, so I'll read it. Dear District Clerk Famularo, it is with some regret that I inform you of my intention to resign from the Board of Education effective November 19th, which is 30 days from today. If the board opts to appoint my replacement and is able to do so before that date, I will step down earlier. It's been an honor and a pleasure to serve on the board for the last 4 years. I thank all my fellow board members those currently serving as well as those I have served with in the past for their integrity and their camaraderie. It's been a pleasure working with them, and I've learned much from them all. Likewise, I thank everybody at the school for their hard work and dedication. We're very lucky to have such a fine school. Sincerely, Peter Henderson.
Well, that says it all. So today is not Peter's last day, so I'm going to reserve my accolades and how much we'll miss him. But this isn't news to us. Each of us do know that this was coming tonight, so we've had some time to think about what and to do some research about what this means. But we definitely want to thank Peter for his service. Okay, I will tell you that you'll be really missed. I'll tell you again. But our business here tonight is just to talk about what this means for the board and what our next steps are in light of this information. So the way I understand it is we have some options. So when a board member resigns, we can appoint somebody to step in. And that can just be somebody that the board determines is a great candidate. We just did it recently with Joe Curto. So that's one option, appoint somebody that we think is a great option to fill the rest of his year out. Another option is to go through a application and interview process, and then to hopefully pick one of those people that apply and appoint that person. And that would be casting a wider net for sure, and that person would also just run through the end of this year, through May. The other option we have is to not appoint anybody and to operate as a 4-person board, and we could do that until May.
Did we get a clarification on that?
We did. I asked because I wasn't sure if there was a time limit for that, but there isn't. So we could just operate as 4 people.
What happens in the case of a tie?
Nothing. It's a no.
It's a no?
Yeah.
Nothing happens?
Ties or no's?
Ties go to the no.
Ties go to the no.
And there is a fourth option, which is to hold a special election.
Oh, thank you. The 4th option is to hold a special election. Sorry, that one was like, no way. I didn't even say that, but yes, yeah. So we could hold a special election, which would be at a significant cost to the district. So those are our 4 options. Do you guys want to chime in about, we've talked a little bit about this offline, but do you want to share thoughts on which direction you'd like to see us going? Peggy?
Yeah. I think one of the most, Peter, and I as long as I've paid close attention to the board, it's been really clear that Peter brings, such a strong business sense and really strong financial sense, not just sense, but expertise, understanding, and that's a really important, he, in that way he plays a really very important role on the board. His ability to and willingness to really look at things so closely, budgets, audit reports, the warrant, all those things. I actually really had hoped to learn a lot from Peter over the course of this year about, those kinds of things. So anyway, that's just one thought that I have. And then I think that the fact that but the community elected him also speaks to the fact that the community as a whole values that that expertise is represented on the board.
So what I think you're starting to do is define the characteristics of my replacement.
Yeah, I think, well, at least in terms of the things of that, I think that however we get to it, sort of what you know, as Peter's leaving, we're beginning to move into the budget season. And, you know, it's such one of the board's most important responsibilities. And so just making sure, well, to the extent that we can, and I think, yeah, from my perspective, it would be great to be able to find a way to keep that expertise.
Yeah,
Or
agreed.
some version of it.
Can we talk a little bit about, does anybody here feel like we want to operate as a 4-person board between now and May?
No, I do not.
No.
That makes it tough if you ever have a situation where more than 2 people can't be at a meeting, then we have no meeting.
That's right, because you need
Because
a
the
quorum.
quorum's 3.
That's right.
So
That-
that's an issue as
Yeah,
well.
that's an issue. But I also think, yeah, the financials that Peter is able to do, we need somebody to fill that hole, because it's gonna be a very big hole.
And if we ran a application interview appointment process and didn't find somebody that we all agreed to was the right candidate, do we feel like that would be an opportunity to run as a 4-person board, or would we do it again?
I mean, I would say, once you do it once, if that wasn't successful, then we would just have to suck it up and go for the rest of the year.
And your term's up in May, is that right?
No.
July 1st?
But what would
Oh, wait, no.
happen?
Is in May of 2017.
Right.
So the person we appoint stays till
No, no, no.
2017?
The person
until
that
the
gets
next election.
appointed would stay until the next election, which is like May 20th maybe. And that person would, once elected, would then fill the remainder of the seat.
Oh, like
Like
me.
you.
Like what Peggy did.
Because I was elected to fill, I guess, what was originally Gillian's term.
Jillian, right.
Yeah.
So Jillian's term, yeah. So I have a term of a year.
That's right.
Right.
And so they would have a term of whoever got
Until
elected.
the 2017. Yeah?
Whoever you appoint would fill my seat until
Until-
May of 2016.
And then they'd be
Next year.
elected
And
then
for
then,
a year.
then there would be an elected spot for a 1-year term.
Okay.
And it would be the same thing with the
Mhm.
least vote getter getting that
Mhm,
term, and the 2 tops getting.
And who else is up in 2016? You.
And the position that I'm filling is up for election.
So I would say that to just go ahead and circumvent, why not just put out the application? If instead of just saying, okay, we're going to appoint someone, if we're going to go that route, we might as well just put it out there and say, okay, well, because maybe, who we're thinking, if there's someone out there, like, we might as well just say, you know what, let's open it up for applications, but maybe not necessarily say. I remember last time this happened when we did it. We actually did it and said we were going to hold open interviews,
Yeah, and
public
ironically,
interviews.
Peter
Was the one.
Oh, that's right. And that Peter was the one. That's right. I was trying to think who was it. It was
Full
Peter.
circle.
All right. But maybe not back ourselves into the situation. We're not necessarily saying we won't have public interviews, but we may not. So we can just say we'll accept the resumes, and then once we get the applications, then we could decide if we want to just choose from the applications or conduct.
Because if we do interviews, they do need to be in public.
Right, but we don't necessarily need to do interviews. So we can just say we're taking applications, and then once we get the applications, we can choose from the applications, or we can say, you know what, why don't we do some interviews? I mean, there'll be public interviews. So basically what I'm doing, as far as process of the elimination, so I said, like, since the special election, no. 4, no.
Sorry, I didn't ask everybody's opinion on
So-
that. I just gave mine.
Right,
Does
but I
anybody
think
here
we
feel
all
like
agree
should
on
do a
that
special
one.
election?
But, so I'm saying, so instead of just saying we're gonna just pick someone and appoint them,
Right.
we might as well just open it up for everyone, and
Yeah.
then we can go out and recruit and say, hey, it's open, why don't you throw an application in?
Sure.
Okay, but, so I would say, if we're going to go from those 2, we might as well just open it up to anyone who wants to, and then choose from there, but not necessarily commit to conducting interviews until we see the applicants.
And that's not required? The interviews are not required?
I don't think they are, but that can be something we
I
double
don't
check.
think so.
I don't think
So
so.
you didn't have an interview, you just.
Oh, I did.
He did.
He did.
But we did it.
And a
We
public
decided-
interview.
Yeah.
Yes.
but we decided to do it.
But if you remember,
We
Joe-
decided to, and Mike was on
Joe
the board at
didn't
the
get it.
time. We,
Joe
we,
was
des-
disappointed.
we decided to do them, and, but also, we don't necessarily even need to interview, we don't need to interview, if there's 6 applicants, we can just say, you know what, let's interview these 2 or these 3.
Right,
We don't
and we
necessarily,
can.
we don't have to necessarily interview all 6. And then the way we did it, it was very it was not a gotcha interview. They had the questions before. When they got there, we gave them a piece of paper and said, we're gonna ask you these 5
you
questions.
have to ask each person the
You know, we're
same
gonna ask you these 5
questions.
questions. So it wasn't a gotcha type of thing. So they knew exactly what we were gonna ask them, and they had the opportunity to kind of get their thoughts together.
And it's an opportunity for the public too to just
Yeah.
start to get to know the person a little
Yeah.
bit, because if you think of the election process, you know, the public has an opportunity to get to know who these people are that's going to be serving on the board, and if we don't give them that opportunity, then the public is left out of the decision process a little bit. Okay, so it's sounding to me like we are going to go through the process of requesting applications or letter of an interest, and maybe like a letter of interest and a resume type of thing. And then we will review those letters of interest and then make a decision if we want to move forward with interviews, and then appoint one of those people. Fingers crossed we get a whole pool of great people, and we appoint somebody. If for some reason we get a whole bunch of people that are not appropriate, we don't want to appoint any of them, then we can make that decision as a group of, maybe we just operate as a 4-person board, or do we cast the net again? Or do we just twist Peter's arm and say, don't you dare leave? Yeah? Are we in agreement?
I think so.
And we can carefully craft the call for applications to include things like what Peggy was talking about, you know, of strong background, what we're looking for, not to make it seem like it would disqualify anybody,
Right.
but to say like this in particular, what we are interested in is a strong financial background, financial expertise, business leadership, you know, whatever we can come up with words that make sense, but.
But I mean, it also makes sense. So one of the things I think those of us that ran, when we turned, I can't remember exactly what the exact scenario was, but at one point the district clerk provided everybody who ran with some documents that really described and resources that really described what the responsibilities of the board are. One of them is very much about, helping to ensure the financial health of the district, but making sure that people, understand that, yeah.
Yeah, and Julia, we can figure out what those were and get them to whomever sends in a letter of interest.
Yeah.
New York State School Board Association.
Yeah,
that's
right, yeah, that's what, yeah.
All right, so I feel like we have a game plan on that. I also want to bring up that Peter is serving under the vice president role. So.
I mean, can I just, I called Jen yesterday, because, when we found out about Peter, and, I kind of said, I've always been hesitant about taking on a role, but I told her that once we decide what we're going to do, and, once Peter officially is resigned, and we decide what we're going to do, that I would be willing to kind of throw my name into for the vice president role. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Right. So what we would do is that would be voted on by the full board membership so whomever we appoint, hopefully we are appointing somebody, we have 5 people, and at that point we can have like a vote to decide on who would be the vice president. And Evan is preemptively throwing his name in the ring. Anybody else can as well. And then we can have like a conversation about it, and we can basically vote on it. So we can, that can be a next kind of the next layer to it. I mean, technically, vice president is not legally required. It is just something that is part of the Haldane culture, which I certainly think we should continue doing. Anything else? District clerk, did I miss anything that we need to discuss about this?
So are we making an official decision that we're gonna get out?
Yeah.
Or we're making official, like, because we don't meet again for another 2 weeks, so
Yeah, so we are making a decision right now that we're going to publicly release a call for applications or a call for letters of interest, and I'll get with Linda about that, you know, tomorrow and get that out into the papers. It might not be in the papers till next week. I don't.
And we'll get the correct wording out.
Yeah, whatever the proper wording is.
I'm sure she has it.
Yeah, and she sent me the. But it's now public knowledge, so if anybody wants to start, you know, nudging anybody that they would like to apply, please nudge away and get people thinking about it. And we would like to get it wrapped up and moving ahead for the 30-day notice, right? So that would mean, ideally, at the November workshop meeting, that would be a great opportunity to appoint a new person. So that means we need to get it moving along. It's okay if there's a little bit of layover if that's not what happens, but that would be the ideal, I think. Missed anything? Are we good? Do you have anything you'd like to say?
I'd just like to encourage people to seriously consider sending in a letter of interest. If you think it's something that you've contemplated in the past, but the time just never seems quite right, I think we'll all tell you the time is never quite right. You just have to, you jump in, and it's one of the most fabulously rewarding things you can ever do. For me, it's been a tremendously rewarding experience. It's just unfortunate. Things happen, and it's just unfortunate that my moving on doesn't coincide with the election cycle. But you know that happens. Please, you know, we'll talk about it with the folks we know who we think might be a good fit. But there's a lot of really great people in this community that would be a fabulous asset to this board, and I just hope that at least one of them is willing to come forward.
And it's a great opportunity to kind of test drive it, because there's really, you know, we would like them, if they're going to take it, we obviously would want them to run for the full seat, but you know, they're not
For it,
or they don't have to. I mean, so they can come in, and after 4 or 5 months, they can say, you know what, it was nice, but I'm decided not to run for the position. So it's kind of whereas when you run for the board, you know, if you change your mind after 2 months, well, you got 3 more years left. So this would be a good opportunity to kind of test drive the position for those people that are kind of on the fence.
Yeah, yeah. And I think we could also say that in our characteristics, our perfect characteristic would be somebody who's kind of looking long term.
Yeah.
Because it is, as we all know, it's a challenge to get up to speed. So to get up to speed and then to be done would be a bummer. Okay, so I know Julie and Bren are like, not me. Okay, so I think that's it. I feel like we have enough information to get the board stuff cooking. Hey, I didn't say I was adjourning, Michael Gingulis. I was just saying we were done with the topic at hand. Is there any communication from the public?
Oh, yeah. First off, Peter, you're going to be greatly missed.
Thanks, Mike.
You're a great asset to the board, and you're definitely going to be missed. Did you cite any reasons in your letter? I didn't see anything that I can publicly put out, or just that you're resigning?
Yeah.
Okay. And the board just said there's only 3 by law. There's not 4. Appointing is the same as interviewing and appointing. So really, you can go any route you want. Even if we did the route it's the proper way. If you're going to say you're going to announce it, you should accept the applications in, but you don't have to pick them. If somebody comes to you tomorrow, say Joe Curtle wakes up and decides that he wants to be dumb and just says, hey, I want to go back on the board, you can bring him right back on. But Peter has to be off before it happens. He has to be, he can change his resignation, but he has to be gone. He can't be on there yet, so that's the only thing. But Peter, you're going to be missed. It's great working with you the years I did.
Yeah, it
Thank
definitely
you.
was.
Thank you for clarifying. So appointing is appointing. It's just a matter of which way we want to go about it.
Oh, if you just appoint straight out or appoint with the applications and,
Interviews.
there you go. I didn't, okay.
Thank you.
Well, that's why I said, like, we'll accept applications, but we're not committing to any interviews. That'll be a decision we can make after we get the applicants.
Yeah. Okay, are we good?
We're accepting the external report at the business meeting, right? Do we have to accept the audit?
Mm-hmm. You do.
Okay.
Right, at the business meeting.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.